Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Jason with Jadren Aquatics. Thanks for hanging out with me in the fish room. So today we are going to talk about how to instant cycle your tank. But before we actually get to that, let's talk a little bit about cycling. So we know that one of the biggest problems that new people that get into fish keeping, the biggest problem they typically have is waiting for their tanks to cycle. It's so difficult. You go to a fish store, you know, we've all been there, you're all excited, you see all these fish you want, you bought this tank, you take it home, you get it set up, and the last thing you want to do is to have to wait 6 or 7 weeks for your tank to cycle. So there's got to be a better way to do this, because almost everyone has a story of having a tank previously and then losing all your fish and then giving up and not coming back to the hobby. We know when we go to a garage sale, you see fish tanks and hamster cages at just about every garage sale you go to, because almost everyone has kept fish at one time or another, and many times the cycle is what has killed them. They bought their tank, and the place they buy their tank allows them to buy the fish at the same time. They take them home and they absolutely kill their fish. So let's talk a little bit about what cycling of a tank actually is, so that we know that we put water in a tank, the bacteria that is needed is not currently in the water when we very first put it in. That bacteria has to actually form, and the type of bacteria that we need are the bacteria that actually take the waste that's produced by the fish or snails, which is ammonia, and takes that ammonia and turns it into nitrite. And then there's another bacteria that takes that nitrite and converts it into nitrate. Now nitrates are typically eaten by plants. In lower doses, they really don't affect most fish, so we don't have to worry about nitrates too much. It's the ammonia and the nitrite are the poisoner and the killer of our fish. And whenever you set up a brand new tank, it takes a long time for that bacteria to actually build up. Again, it can take sometimes 6 to 7 weeks if you just set a tank up and you put a sponge filter in there or a hang on the back filter and you just let the thing run. Maybe put some fish food in there. Some people like to cycle it with fish, so that you know when you cycle it with fish, you're forcing that fish to have to go through ammonia spikes, which are burning it and hurting it and burning up its gills. It's never good on the fish to actually do that. But there are some fish that have the ability to actually survive that, believe it or not, and that will sometimes cycle the tank a little bit faster, but still you're looking at probably at least 4 to 5 weeks even if you do a cycle like that. So let's talk about some of the different ways that you can speed this process up. Here's one of the best ones that I think you should do. Is if you're interested in fish, you need to find a local fish group that you can become a part of. When you're a part of that group, most of the people that are part of these groups actually want to help. They want to see you be successful, because the more people that are in the hobby, the better the hobby does, the more fish that we have available, the better the pricing is. It's just better for everyone. So all of us as hobbyists want to help other hobbyists to be successful. We don't want to see all these people failing. It doesn't do anybody any good. So when you become a part of one of these groups, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking at setting up a tank. Can somebody help me with some cycled material? And so you've got different ways you can do it. Someone may have, may just take some of the substrate from their aquarium, take a bunch of the sand or some of the rock and stuff they have it down at the bottom, or maybe a piece of driftwood, and they can give that to you, and that can cut the cycling time almost in half. But the best thing that you could possibly do is if you can get someone that will either give you or sell you a sponge filter. So let's say someone like me that has multiple tanks, I can simply take an extra sponge filter that I have and I can put it in an aquarium and I can just let it sit there. And then whenever I'm ready, I'll take that sponge filter and swap it out with one of the ones that's actually running. And the one that was actually running now is a fully cycled sponge. So I can give that sponge over to someone, they can put it in a tank, and your tank is instantly cycled. You don't have to do anything. Now granted, depending on how many fish were in the tank, of the tank that the sponge actually came from. Now if it was just 1 or 2 guppies, okay, it's not going to have a lot of bacteria, because the amount of bacteria that exist in your aquarium is going to be based upon the amount of waste that's being produced. Now that bacteria that exists doesn't just exist only on the sponge filter or on the hang on the back material that's in it. It's going to be all over the rocks, all over the plants, all over the glass, and in the water column. I know one of my subscribers actually reached out to me because he knew that I was going to do a show that he was going to show up at. And he asked me if he had 8 tanks that he wanted to get set up. And he wanted to know if he could buy some cycled sponge filters from me. I said, yeah, I'd love to help you out. So that's what I did. I did exactly that. I put those extra sponge filters in there a week or two beforehand. And the night before, I swapped them out and put all of them in a 5-gallon bucket. Took them to the show with me, and he actually traded me out some smaller sponges that I actually needed. But it could have easily have sold them. They cost about $10 for me to buy them, so I gladly sell them for $10. And now he's got all 7 or 8 tanks that are now going to be instantly cycled. So reach out to someone that you know that's in the hobby and see if you can't get them to give you some material to help you get that thing cycled faster. Another thing, I really think that some of the aquarium stores or fish stores need to be doing this same thing. They should have a sump that they have set up that has a bunch of filter media in it, so that if someone wants to actually buy some filter media, they can, and be able to take that, bring it home, and actually have a cycled tank ready to go. It's going to allow them to buy fish faster. It's going to allow them to enjoy things faster, and not have to have that patience of waiting 6 or 7 weeks. It just seems like a great idea, but I've never really found any fish store that'll actually do that. But it doesn't hurt to actually go to your local fish store and ask them, because you might be surprised, because it's probably something they've never been asked before. So I know a lot of you are saying, Jason, these are some great ideas, but that's not really instantly cycling a tank. You're just using media from another tank to get that tank going. So it's not really an instant cycle. Okay, I'll give you that. It's not really an instant cycle. So is there an actual way to do an instant cycle? And the answer is yes. This is stuff that I have used and has been very successful with it. That's this stuff right here. This is the Fritz live nitrifying bacteria. No, this is not a paid advertisement. It's just this stuff works that good that I want to share it with you. You guys have been in the pet store before and seen all different types of brands of this stuff. But to me, the majority of it just does not do anything at all. It's kind of like snake oil to me. It's kind of in your mind whether or not it actually works. But this stuff actually works. I have about 4 or 5 bottles of this stuff because I use it so much. Also, I was blessed to be able to go on a tour of the Fritz facility during the last Aquashella, and I got to talk to some of the scientists that were there, ask questions, and also got to see these huge vats they have going where they actually keep this nitrifying bacteria going. So inside this stuff is actually living bacteria. So you can take this, you can set up an aquarium, you can put some type of sponge filter or some hang on the back, whatever you want to use, and you can pour the amount in here. There's 2 different dosings for it. There's a dosing for new tanks, and there's a dosing for ones that are existing tanks. If you put that in there, you can immediately put fish in there. But be careful. Don't overstock the thing, because you got to give this time to get settled in and to start to grow and to start to produce more. And so if you've got a 10-gallon tank and you put this stuff in here, just put 4 guppies in there to start off with, and then the next week you can add a couple of more, and the next week you can add a couple of more. That way this thing will gradually go. But this thing absolutely can instant cycle your tank. It's just fantastic. I use it in just in case scenarios, because again, I'll take sponges that are in other aquariums and move it to another one, and I'll go ahead and add the small dose of this to it, just to be sure. And I've absolutely had no problems with this stuff whatsoever. This stuff is just, you just can't beat it. And again, all the other stuff that I've seen out there, I've used a lot of it, and even when you pour it out and look at it, it just looks like it's water. This stuff, when you pour it out, you can actually see like microbes and stuff that are kind of actually in it. This is live stuff that's actually happening inside this. It actually has an expiration date when you have to use it before this stuff will actually start to die off. All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you have learned something. I just want to see more people be successful at this hobby. That's really what my ultimate goal is, and that's why I like to share some of these tips and tricks with you guys so that you can also be successful and move on from just, you know, buying just a few fish to getting hooked onto fish, to buying more tanks and being able to experience the awesomeness that I get to experience in my fish room every single day. You guys got any questions or comments? Be sure and leave them down below. So thanks again, guys, and God bless.